Hello, welcome to my channel. Today I thought I could go through a little bit of the issues that defense attorney Gary Mitchell is presenting with the autopsy, as well as his defense strategy that he's laid out for us. I'm going to start with the defense strategy. In the latest interview he did with CourtTV, he mentioned a couple things which made me perk my ears up as a paralegal, because he basically is lining out his points of defense and his strategy before they get to court. These are great things to know, since I am hoping for a guilty verdict, right? So if we can prepare for all of the little holes he's going to try and shoot through the evidence, we can be better prepared for whatever outcome may happen in court. So he says in his defense, number one, that there's an issue with the autopsy. Early on in the video, he says the issues with how the baby died. Later, with how they claim the baby died. Later in the interview, he says that the methods aren't classically used, which got me to researching, and I figured out exactly how they do autopsies in New Mexico. Number two is the morphine. Because I don't handle medical cases, I'm not a medical expert. A lot of paralegals transition from being in the medical world. If you're in medical billing, or you are a nurse and you're looking for something different, maybe think about becoming a paralegal, because the legal field always needs people who understand how to read medical documents, who understand the procedure in hospitals and whatnot. So I do not have a solid number on how much morphine is in a baby's system typically when they're born, okay? Because morphine is a drug given to women in the birthing process, typically earlier stages of labor, from the research I've found out. This is not my area of expertise. When I look up trying to find a number for the nanograms per milliliter or whatever of morphine in a baby's blood, I get most information is coming from children born from an addict and having drugs in their system, right? So it's not a common number that I'm finding. If there's any medical professionals out there who can tell me the average amount of morphine in a baby's system, because he's trying to build burden of doubt on how the baby died from being, he's trying to build doubt on the baby dying from being entrapped in a plastic bag, as the morphine can cause breathing issues. I don't know how much morphine it would take. That's my issue, so I can't really, defend or not his idea of morphine. E. coli, I don't think his defense about how he's saying that there's E. coli was on the baby. And again, these aren't full defenses. These are just things that he's throwing out there. A lot of them are going up to the main issue of his defense, but of course they don't have a great defense, and this kind of shows that. So he's got to try every which way. This is not a great case for him. So number three, the third thing he mentioned was that the baby had E. coli. That doesn't play out well to the jury if you mention that, because you're the one who admitted in a prior interview that Alexee birthed the baby into a commode, into the toilet. So where that baby got E. coli is her issue, not anyone else's. So that's not a great defense, but he brings it up as if it means anything. Personally, I don't. I think it's a non sequitur, and I think it makes your client look worse. That Alexee had COVID and the flu. The only thing that made me think is maybe it made her back pain more intense, and maybe her pain in her back was more pronounced than anywhere else, because I've had COVID and the flu, and I have back issues and hip issues, kind of like Alexee's mom has said that she has. I'm really structurally damaged, and every time I've had COVID and the flu, especially in the last 5 years as I get older, my back and my butt muscles and my thigh muscles are just in horrific pain, just the worst pain ever. And so I can understand, that's the only thing that made me think is back pain from those, but those don't matter either. Having COVID and the flu don't give you an excuse for murder. So The other medications, again, this leads back to what I was saying about morphine. I am not a medical expert. I'm a paralegal. I do not know what medications specifically contraindicate birth, I believe is a word they use, but I don't know for sure. I think there'd be a lot, I'd probably see more from nurses saying that these medications would hurt babies or anything like that. I haven't seen anyone come out and really make a strong case for that, and there is a lot of talk online. So as far as I can see, the other medications, since they did not know she was in the birthing process, do not matter, in my opinion. Number 6 is the second most important thing, in my opinion, other than the autopsy issue of how he's trying to put holes in the autopsy, is he's trying to, as you can see over here on the strategy, he's going to suppress statements, I'm assuming because he brought up the fact that he really wanted to make a point that she's never said she was a virgin and she never said that she didn't have sex. I'm shocked he didn't bring up what the triage nurse said about how when she came, the moment she walked out of the bathroom, she said she was on her period. That's another statement he's probably going to try and suppress. Now, if these aren't hearsay, good luck suppressing these statements, sir. You could try all you want. But, again, he wants to suppress those statements because those, let me see, willful and deliberate. Let me pull this up. Those just show how willful and deliberate she was in trying to get away with her murder, right? They show that she didn't try in any way to come clean at any point. She didn't try and tell anyone what was going on at any point. She, in fact, was trying to throw them off the scent, so to speak, right? So I do think he's very worried about those statements because not only do they not indicate a mental illness or any kind of break from reality, they actually indicate the opposite, which is you were strategically trying to cover up your tracks and make sure no one suspects anything, which is basically the definition of willful and deliberate right here, as you can see that. So, he says he's going to try, here's the strategy, going to try and change venue. Makes sense. I'm not mad about that. I understand that, like, whatever. Of course, you don't want this done at the Artesia courthouse, right? Like, even for me wanting a guilty verdict, I think it's smart to have this happen elsewhere, specifically because of the fact that the whole town seems pretty pissed off. You're also suing the town's likely only hospital, and who knows what could happen for that. That causes a burden on this small town, because it does seem like a very small town. Maybe they have more than one hospital, but now they're bringing a wrongful death suit against a hospital, which usually includes a pretty high amount of damages. In the state of New Mexico, I was looking at it, I was reading up on their wrongful death statutes, and they definitely qualify if, they were, obviously, I believe Alexee killed the baby, and I think that they're going to have one hell of a battle in court. But, they qualify for only a certain amount of damages, not all of them, because they didn't lose any household income, they didn't lose certain things, they just basically lost consortment or whatever, they basically lost the baby that they were going to have. But again, she killed the baby, so if anyone should be being sued for wrongful death, Devin Fierro should have sued Alexee's family. That's just my opinion, because if I was him and I didn't know this baby was coming, and my girlfriend was getting charged with the murder of the baby, yeah, I'd be suing her and her family for killing my child. So, that's just how I see it. Sorry to go off on a tangent. Okay, back to the matter at hand. The study. I put up intent up here, I guess, just because I feel like a lot of people may want to know. That's the New Mexico definition of intent, right? And we have that for her. Deliberate intention is defined as arrived at or determined upon as a result of careful thought and the weighing of the consideration for and against the proposed course of action. Intent is subjective and is almost always inferred from other facts in the case and is rarely established by direct evidence. Essentially, that's just saying that you can infer intent through other things, right? People don't often, tell you as they're murdering someone on the video camera. You don't hear them saying, I'm going to the kitchen to grab a knife to stab this person. I'm walking down the hallway to stab this person. Your intent is not stated often. You can get intent through the fact that they went into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, came down the hall, and then proceeded to do whatever crime with the knife, right? It's not a crime to just go grab a knife and walk down the hall with it. It is once you stab someone with it. And that shows your intent. And so for her, he's trying to suppress these statements because those statements show her intent. They show that she fully intended to get away with having this baby. Anyways, let's move on to the big news here, which is how autopsies are done. So, in New Mexico, they do virtual autopsies by CT and MRI. They do not go under the knife, okay? That is what he means by not classically used methods for an autopsy. Now, if he's finding holes in their procedure, or he finds that they assume the baby stopped breathing because the bag was closed and not because of the morphine, that is the issue I see here for when he's saying how the baby died, okay? Because he knows that the autopsy itself, as long as all the procedural rules and all the chain of command was followed and everything's on the up and up from the state, he knows that that autopsy seals the deal. We have all of the inferred intent that we need for her willful and deliberate murder charge. He needs, number one, the autopsy to have holes, and number two, the people who made statements that show she intended to hide this pregnancy and get away with this. He needs to suppress those statements. The autopsy itself, unless there is issues with, like I said, chain of command or procedurally that they did something wrong, which, let me tell you, I can assure you they probably minded their P's and Q's. They crossed their T's and dotted their I's. This is a baby in a trash bag, and they knew the implications of this autopsy. This isn't a sweet old grandma who was on hospice who finally passed, and there's no foul play. All the family was in the room looking at her and saying goodbye and sweet. This isn't that kind of autopsy. This is an autopsy that they know is going to be used in court, most likely, okay? So they likely did everything well. He's, I think, punching at air with this, but of course that's his job. He's getting paid a lot of money to punch at air because we have a pretty solid case here. Now, I found this study because I wanted to double check, because he is going to bring experts, right? Which means we have to mind our P's and Q's. I found a study about virtual autopsies in infants, newborns, and children. And it says here, the accuracy is similar to a conventional autopsy for determining the cause of death or major abnormalities, pathological abnormalities, in fetuses, newborns, and infants, but was less accurate in older children. So, essentially what this is saying is, you can read it for yourself there, that this is gonna hold up. Only 2 states use this: Maryland, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Okay, those are the only 2 states and the only 2 places that I could find currently that use virtual autopsies. But it is widely used in Australia, Switzerland. A lot of other first world countries are using these, MRI machines, CT scan, to do virtual autopsy. It preserves a 3D record of the autopsy. You can see without interference of, not to make it gory, but blood and other things getting in the way of when you're doing an actual autopsy. That was one of the things I read about it. The only thing that it seemed negative about for in the study about newborns or children is the one thing it had a hard time seeing is certain types of blood pulled under the brain from like a traumatic head injury, right? So that's one of the only things that they seem to want to do invasively. It seems as though Albuquerque and New Mexico have adopted this partially for a religious reason, as when I was reading their statutes about autopsies, there were mentions about things for religion and stuff like that. And so it seems like there might be a pretty heavy religious presence as to not wanting autopsies done. And this is a great way to honor those people's religious beliefs while preserving record and getting evidence in possible murder situations and in abnormal death situations, for public health, So anyways, that is the issue with the autopsy. He's saying that essentially this virtual autopsy is not a classically used means to do an autopsy, but all the case law, I don't see murder cases getting messed up in the state of New Mexico because of the autopsy. This is an accepted form of autopsy, codified in their law. It is how it goes. Unless he has an actual issue that they just assumed the baby, they didn't run an autopsy, and that they assumed the baby was asphyxiated, then maybe there's some kind of issue. But I highly doubt that was the process. Because again, even the police knew when the police on the police body cam footage, I might be able to pull it up for you and put it in here. We'll see. My editing skills aren't that great, but the one officer tells what seems to be the younger officer who's in training and a newer officer at the hospital, just be careful what you're saying here on this body cam because this is gonna get subpoenaed. I believe his exact quote was, "This is gonna go all the way up," right? So this body cam footage, they knew, even in the moment, they were like, this is something here. We need to preserve the record. We need to be on our best behavior, mind our P's and Q's. And so, yeah, even they knew. So if the police officers at the scene knew, the medical examiner definitely knew, and they aren't just going to go, oh, well, it was in a bag. Let's assume the baby was killed like this, right? Because then the defense attorney will have a huge field day with that. No, of course they're not going to freaking do that. On a website for the virtual autopsy, like the machines that they sell for it, the guy who runs the company was saying essentially our customers, the court system, need these machines because not everyone in there has a good understanding of the workings of the body, and it gives them a full breakdown and all that, which is, like I was saying earlier, as a paralegal, I don't know how medications interact, and I don't know what medications should and shouldn't be given to a pregnant woman. I can do that research and find out. But again, those are things that we have to have experts tell us. I'm not an expert. Even if I went and found that information, I would still need an expert to testify to it, right? I'd still have to go find us an expert. So again, I don't think that there is an issue with the autopsy. I think he's blowing smoke up our ass. Sorry to cuss, but he is. He's blowing a bunch of smoke. He's trying to make smoke and mirrors. And it's not going to go over with me because all I got to do is do a little bit of legal research and find that you have no leg to stand on. My next video I'm going to be making is about how on the same CourtTV interview, when they did a panel after he was on there, there's a attorney, and she's a criminal defense attorney, so you can't really be upset about it, but she does basically say that the hospital should be charged with murder, and that if Alexee has any kind of mental health issue, that her intent is taken away. And she just I don't know, I haven't even been to law school, but I just know that that's not how it works. And so I'm going to be responding to that because I think she may be conflicting premeditation with intent. And that's just not how it goes, especially in the state of New Mexico. on Alexee's charges, it says willful and deliberate. It does not say premeditated, and that's kind of why I brought up the willful and deliberate thing here. I just want that there for everyone to see it, because willful and deliberate is not the same as premeditated. Some people do premeditate their killings, and they know what they're going to do. Murder is still murder. It doesn't matter if you have premeditation or not. It matters if you intended to murder the person. Okay, and so with the baby being in the bag, that's the intent. That's the first level of intent. We can back it up and show lots of other things that show her intent as well. And it was very willful and deliberate when she put the baby in the bag, twisted the bag, concealed the bag from view. A mentally ill person would just deliver the baby in the middle of the floor or in the toilet in the bathroom and walk away from it in shock or something, right? Not to assume, but mentally ill people don't like conceal the evidence. When a crazed person, sorry, that's probably a not really great way to say it. When someone who's like suffering from a mentally ill moment, like a schizophrenic person who murders someone in a park, okay, is like the exact thing I'm trying to think of. They don't often tend to drag the body behind the rocks and conceal it and hide it all of a sudden in a moment of clarity. That's considered clarity under the law when you're trying to conceal what you've just done. That's clarity. That's not mentally ill. That's mentally ill when you murder someone in the middle of Central Park and then you start talking to a squirrel. Okay, like that's mental illness, and you're not even acknowledging the fact that you just stabbed someone. Okay, that's mental illness. Sorry to make it so out there, but it's people kind of, because of TV and movies, maybe think that you can get away with like an insanity plea or like that you can get away with mental illness, and that's not the case. A lot of people have murdered in the act of mental illness and are still locked up on their charges, life in prison, life without parole, life with possibility of parole, but still they are charged with murder. Okay. So I thought, sorry, I'm already starting the next video, I guess, in this, but it really just pumped me up that she was saying that stuff. So just to recap on this, I take that away. Their defense, here's the points that they have for their defense and their strategy. He's going to try and, I didn't talk about misuse of privileged materials. He didn't mention what kind of materials. I'm assuming he's talking about medical documents or anything like that. Good luck. Nothing was privileged from the body cameras and the hospital footage camera, which really is the most damning thing. And then you can suppress all the statements you want. Anything that's not hearsay and that was from people who were actually there is going in. They're going to get to take the stand. So you can try and suppress things, but they're going to get to speak freely. Thank you so much for watching. It's been your girl Friday talking about the defense strategy and the issues with the autopsy. I'll see you in the next video.